Welcome to the Think Yourself Healthy podcast, where you meet the intersection of mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Heather Duranja, founder of Nutrition Vixen, registered dietitian, nutritionist, personal trainer, and cognitive behavioral specialist. I'm a mother, author, self-improvement junkie, and recovering perfectionist turned professional half-asser. Each week, I'll be bringing on a guest or a topic that will help you go from surviving to thriving. Are you with me? All right, here we go with today's episode. Hey, everybody. On today's show, we have a special guest. Her name is Carah Elizabeth, and I am super excited for her to be here with us. I met Carah earlier this year at an event that I attended with 45 other amazing women, and ultimately had an opportunity to connect with Carah. And so just a little bit about her. Carah is a trauma-informed psychotherapist with a Master of Arts degree in professional counseling and training with the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute and the International Association of Trauma Professionals. She has also trained as a registered yoga teacher, yoga Nidra, how do you say that? Nidra, and second degree Reiki healer. She believes it's important to integrate body, mind, spirit into her work with women to assist them in finding their way back to their true selves and meeting their highest potential in all areas of life. It is her belief that behavior does not define a person, however, is a symptom of a deep-seated concern. She is passionate about helping women heal through unearthing and resolving these concerns so that they may grow into their true selves and wellness. Carah, I absolutely love everything I just read. Like, again, when I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come on my podcast. We have to talk, because everything that you embody, really is the same in terms of the philosophies and the practices that I believe so strongly in, that whole mind, body, soul connection. And we can't really have true health without making sure that we're covering all of the bases. And so I think, for me personally, I think that you're a really unique individual in terms of what you're doing and this new journey that you're going on to. And so I am just so excited to have you here today so that we can share some of this conversation with the audience, because I feel so many people need to hear the conversation that we're going to have. And the reality is we are all humans that have trauma, and we're just trying to heal, and we don't know how to heal.
Absolutely. Well, I am so honored. Thank you so much for having me on this show today. It is amazing to be here, and I'm just super excited to share all this with you, because absolutely, I mean, we all are human, having a human experience, and we all do have an element of trauma, whether we say that word or not.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, there's a lot of stigma around trauma, right? Most people, they associate trauma with some really horrific, like just major tragic experience or event in their life. And so a lot of times we dismiss the traumas that we actually own because we don't feel that they're worthy and deserving of the kind of, level that maybe someone else has experienced trauma.
Absolutely. And that's what I hear a lot of times, like, I wasn't sexually assaulted, or I wasn't abused, or my family was really great, or like nothing really bad happens to me. And those are traumatic experiences that we can all deem traumatic. But getting that look from your mom when what you needed was a hug, and she was giving you that evil eye because she was doing something else, could have been your way of being traumatized in a way. And this isn't to blame anybody at all,
Right.
because she was busy, but how your little child internal brain took it was, I can't have needs, or I can't use my voice, or something's not available to me. And so we do this comparison of like, oh, that trauma's worse than mine, so like this doesn't matter as much, and that's just not the case.
I'm so excited. There are so many things that I want you to share and talk on, because the reality is that we aren't having enough of these conversations, and we aren't giving permission to people to understand that that look that they might have received that made them feel small and made them feel like they couldn't have a voice, they're suppressing it. And because they're suppressing it, it's surfacing in other destructive ways in their life. So can you talk a little bit about this and what you have seen in your experience as, working as a psychotherapist and specifically in trauma?
Absolutely. So I've worked in for about 10 to 15 years has been eating disorders and body image. I'm moving a little bit away from that and moving more into the depth of the trauma piece right now, but that has been the majority of my experience. And a lot of that has to do with trauma. I mean, trauma is the root of so many different things: alcoholism, drugs, eating disorders. Any of those things are really there. Something traumatic happened at the core that's not being addressed. And as long as we just address the symptoms of the eating disorder, the symptoms of the addiction, the symptoms of the rage or any of that, we're just hitting the surface. We're not getting underneath. We're not actually healing. And so that's really what my passion is, as I've gotten more training, as I've worked more in this, is let's get to the root cause and heal that, that all of this other stuff can go away and you can just live your best life.
Yeah. So tell me, does trauma play a role in our ability to truly connect with ourselves and have true self-love?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that we get with trauma is disconnection. Trauma disconnects us from everything. There's a piece of us that when we have trauma it closes that part of us off to where we can't disconnect with how we're feeling. We can't feel our body sometimes. We can't connect with other people because it becomes unsafe. So absolutely, we lose that connection to ourselves. And a lot of times we'll see a lot of apathy, a lot of like, I don't have needs. I don't know, like you pick where we got to dinner, or like, how are you feeling? I don't know. And people are really being honest. At times they really have no clue what they're, and it's others like in relationship with people with trauma are frustrated maybe because like, just tell me what you want, but they really can't. They really can't do what they want or what they need because they shut that part off of themselves. Because it wasn't safe.
Well, I know personally myself, I have experienced this. This is work that I have been doing, over the last decade. Specifically, the last 2 years, I've probably had the most profound growth. A lot of that had to do with me really forcing myself into a situation where I dated myself. I went within and really started asking the hard questions while I sat in silence and isolation. It was not easy. It was not comfortable, but in the end, it was beautiful in the sense that I was able to start finding some answers about myself and having more clarity and being able to process these traumas and what the triggers were that caused me to react in a specific way that was forcing me to sabotage different areas and aspects of my life. For me specifically, receiving love, having a real healthy relationship was one of the biggest places that I was really doing a lot of damage to. So for the person out there who is struggling, how do they learn how to integrate some of these mind, body, soul kind of skills to support the healing journeys through their traumas? So where do they start? How do they talk to me about that?
That's a great question. And there really, and what I want people to know is there really isn't one place to start. So it's starting where you are. I mean, the biggest thing is giving yourself permission to be exactly who you are and not having that judgment of, I don't know why I do this. So I'm so stupid. I did that again, or I got in that relationship again. None of that matters. If you give yourself that compassion and that permission, like, hey, this is happening for a reason. And I don't really know the reason yet, but let me dive into it. Let me explore it. Like giving yourself permission to be exactly where you are. That doesn't stay there, but it means that's a starting point. And once we give ourselves permission, we can then move in a different direction. But we first have to have that awareness of where we are in any moment. And so that's a beautiful, thing that you did, is you took that time to really sit inward and really, ask yourselves those hard questions. And that's exactly an amazing thing for you to have done, because that's exactly what you needed to do, was to listen to yourself. Because like I said, trauma disconnects us from ourselves and from other people. and we have to build trust with ourselves in that reconnect process. And so it gave you that, you took that time to reconnect to yourself. And that's beautiful.
And ultimately, what I ended up discovering is that trust was a huge component of the problem, that I wasn't allowing myself to trust in the decisions that I was making. Therefore, I was literally making decisions to sabotage my ability to believe that I could trust myself.
And that is 100% exactly what happens. And so we see people that, or we ourselves, I've done it too, repeat the same, like we keep getting in relationships with emotionally unavailable people.
Yes, that was my situation.
Girl, I'm with you. Or whatever it might be, you continue to have that repetition of cycling. And what it is that your body is in this zone of comfort. And it may be that it doesn't make sense, or it's unhealthy comfort, but you've gotten comfortable being in chaos, or you've gotten comfortable being with unemotional people, or whatever that is. Your system knows what to do with that. So it continues to figure that out. When you step out and find somebody that like maybe is a little bit emotionally healthy, your system like throws up all the bells and whistles and like, this is dangerous. Like, we don't know what to do with this. Like this, so we sabotage that and we go find somebody emotionally unavailable.
Right.
Because it's your comfort zone. That's what you've become safe in, even if it's unhealthy.
Right. Yeah. I read a book as I was going through this process. It's called The DNA of Relationships. Are you familiar with that work by Gary Smalley? And it really was a beneficial tool for me to recognize all of these behavioral patterns. I have been in really, really toxic relationships. And I judged myself like, I'm an intelligent woman. Why did I do this? How did I end up in this situation? And after reading that book, it really helped me understand these relationships worked. They worked really well. They weren't healthy, but they worked, you know?
Yeah, they served a purpose for your system. Your system knew what to do in those situations, and it was a survival pattern. And all what we need to realize and have that compassion for ourselves is all of the things that we do, all the behaviors that we do served a purpose at one point. Where like your body doesn't realize that you're not in that dangerous situation anymore that it once was in. And that's why it's not working anymore.
Right.
And once we can have compassion for that person, that self that developed that, whatever that pattern was at the time, and knew that it was working at the time, we have to have compassion for that, even if it's not working anymore. Like, you have totally different information now. It doesn't necessarily know the difference.
Right. Yeah. So when you get to that place where you have all this new information and your body or your nervous system, your brain, whatever, I don't know what the terminology is that you use, but when you want to go to those default states because it's comfortable and it's safe, how do you guide yourself, transition yourself over to that unsafe yet therapeutic and healing place?
Yeah. And so it's a journey. Like, I'm going to start there. Like, it's a journey and it doesn't happen all at one time. So it's about breaking that into smaller, manageable steps. And one of the things I love to do with my clients is we go into the somatic works of, okay, so what are you experiencing right now in your body? And that can be really hard because we spend so much time in our heads. So body, like, okay, well, I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Great. So can you feel that? Can you sit with it and be present with it for a few moments? And a lot of people can't to start with. They automatically go into that default, that freeze or that dissociation or whatever it is. But when they can start to tolerate that and kind of just stay present with it, we then just start to have a conversation with it. Can you ask that part of your body, like, how old do you think that you are? And people will always be like, I don't know, but 13 is coming up. And I was like, great. Like, you don't have to know why, but this part of you thinks you're 13. So can we just talk to that part and say, hey, like, I know that you're scared, but I'm not 13 anymore. I got you. I can help you. I'm going to keep you safe, but we have to move forward. We have to start stepping out of that pattern and really just starting to have that conversation with your body about it.
That's so helpful. I think that, so we would call this like the inner child work, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, when I first started doing this work and recognizing that there were traumas that I had experienced that needed some healing, and I was working with professionals and they threw that word, you need to do some inner child work. And I'm like, oh, okay, awesome.
That
What does that mean?
sounds like so much fun, right?
I'm like, so apparently there's this child stuck inside me who is wounded and is hurting really bad because of these traumas that they've experienced that I can't necessarily recall. So I'm not even really sure how to initiate this conversation. And then that was so intimidating that I just went, I'm closing the door. We'll revisit that later.
Absolutely. And that's, and if you don't have a therapist that is in trauma and specialize in this kind of work, like sometimes they're like, well, just sit with it, or that can close the door because it seems too intimidating. They're not explaining it well. They're not like, and sometimes people are like, that just sounds crazy. Like, I don't have a little child inside of me. What are you talking about? And it's like,
right.
We're all basically children. Let's just be honest. Like,
yes.
We're all at the stage, not our own chronological age, like functioning. Right. But it's about, it's okay. Can we start embracing this inner child? Can we start like recognizing that, hey, like you wouldn't treat a child the way that you probably treat yourself. You wouldn't talk to the child the way that you talk to yourself. And there's that part of you that is still 13, that's stuck at that needs to be spoken to with kindness and love, not told she's stupid and you shouldn't feel that way.
Right. So you just said something really powerful that resonated with me and my journey and my experience with this work. So I closed that door for several years. I was like, yeah, that sounds scary and I am definitely not going there. And unfortunately, because of that, it kept me in the same patterns. It halted my ability to really be able to move forward on my healing journey and evolve into the person that I am at, and be able to be in this new healthy relationship that not only have I developed with myself, but I'm also, for the first time in my life, in what I would call a healthy partnership. And it's like, wow, I had no idea what I have been missing out on, because this is amazing. It's super frightening because it's so different than anything I've ever experienced. And I recognize, those sabotaging behaviors want to come out and say, this is scary. Is this really safe? And it is ultimately, but it's not easy. Right. But anyway, my point is that, so for me along this journey, when I finally decided that I was going to hire an expert who specialized in inner child work, she said to me, you need to start having conversations with that young girl inside you and talking to her and actually telling her, like, look, you are safe. I need to thank you for all of the things that you have done to keep me safe under those experiences. However, I have new experiences now that have allowed me new, skills and knowledge that we can move forward utilizing. And so for me, that was a really powerful thing to understand. That's how you initiate this. That's how you start doing the work.
Absolutely. It's 100%. And that is so beautiful. And I'm so glad that you had somebody that was so well trained in that to give you that experience and make it okay. And the other thing I want to say is, like you said, you shut that door, and that's okay too. That's what you needed as well. Like you needed that time to get ready for it. Mm-hmm. And you can't make anybody ready. And it's okay if you're not ready. I mean, it's going to prolong the journey. But part of it, again, is it's okay. Like, we're going to be here for you when you are ready, but I can't make it. And it's about how can we, get you closer to being ready now.
Right. So I think that for me, in my experience, one of the most powerful things that she taught me how to do with this inner child work was be mindful of the way I was talking to myself, and then pretend as if I'm talking to the 5-year-old, and how would I talk to that 5-year-old differently than I was talking to myself in that moment. And when I shifted my perspective that way, it was like, oh God, oh no, I would never tell a child those things. Like, I would never say to her, you suck, you are not worthy and deserving of anything, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, oh, you sweet thing. Let me give you a hug. Let me show you some love.
Absolutely. And that is so powerful. A lot of times with my clients, I'm like, can you get a picture of yourself at 5?
Oh, I love this.
Can you have it maybe posted on your mirror in your bathroom or in your car, wherever you know that you are harshest to yourself? And can you look in those eyes and can you see your eyes? Because they're your eyes. Like, can you see your eyes in that child's eyes and recognize that she's listening to everything you're saying to yourself?
Carah, this work is so important. Like everybody has to do it. We are trying to escape it. And the reality is, if you truly want to be able to reach your potential and live a life of fulfillment and quality, of health and well-being, you have to do the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no getting around it. There's no quick fix or easy way out. I tell clients all the time, I said, you know what? If I had a magic wand and I could take it away for you, I totally would, but it doesn't exist. And we have to go through it. The only way to move through emotions is to move through emotions, is to go through them and experience them.
Yes. And it's so hard, but it's so rewarding when you're able to just do that work.
And that's part of the struggle is like, again, so like we talk about, we created this weird comfort zone of safety and survival patterns. And people are like, but what if it's not better? And that's it. That's in and of the fact that sometimes that fear of, we don't know what to expect. The fear of the unknown keeps us, even though we know that this is chaos over here.
Right.
And I can't make any guarantees, but I've done this long enough to be like, I'm going to tell you it's better.
Yeah.
I've done the work myself. I'm going to tell you it's better, but I can't guarantee what that's going to look like. But, part of it is, can you trust me? Right. Can you trust the members of your treatment team? Can you trust that we aren't trying to steer you wrong? And although like it might get dark before the dawn, the dawn is going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me personally, I feel like when I recommend to my clients that they need to enlist a professional who specializes in therapy type of work, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of stigma, a lot of kickback that I get from them. Like, oh, I don't, therapy doesn't work. Therapy hasn't worked for me. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about, why there's so much stigma around therapy and how you are actually shifting your practice and doing this really incredibly brave thing? I feel like it's really important to hear from someone who's been in the field, who has spent so much time invested in this, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so we have made strides. Like, we have made so many strides in the mental health field to really work on the stigma, and we are leaps and bounds ahead of where we've ever been before. But you're right, there's still a lot of stigma. There's still a lot of, and part of that has to do with cultural dynamic, family dynamic, like how you were raised and what that looks like. Because I run into that all the time. Like, people don't tell their families they're in therapy because they're afraid of what their families are going to say, or they don't believe in therapy or in talking about like airing their dirty laundry. And to be honest with you, like, I'm kind of like a weirdo in my family because I'm from the Midwest and I love my good Midwest family, but a lot of things get swept under the rugs. A lot of things doesn't get talked about or never did as long as we were children. Now I'm here, a therapist, like, and they're all very proud of me, but sometimes they're like, still don't know how to talk about things. And so it's really, it's still really sad how much of a stigma there still is about everything, especially in light of all of the stuff happening in our society with mental health related. Like, it's really sad, but there's a lot of different things. People don't like being labeled. They don't like being diagnosed. There's the whole insurance fiasco, because that's all a thing nowadays too. So like, is insurance going to cover it? Is insurance not going to cover it? If I have a diagnosis of any kind and then I go to try to get a private policy, I'm disqualified because I have a pre-existing condition. It's valid. It's 100% valid in that. And part of it is that awareness that like, hey, there's nothing, we all have problems. We all have a diagnosis. Let me just say, I'm just going to put it out there. Yes. Every person in the world has a diagnosis of some kind.
Yes.
It's about like, we don't have to live up to whatever number somebody gives us on a diagnosis code. We don't have to live up to any label that anybody ever tells us we are or we have. It's not about that. It's about who are you and where do you want to go? And I mean, I have a diagnosis of anxiety. I had a diagnosis in the past of depression. I had a diagnosis of OCD in the past. I have overcome
Same.
Right, exactly. Who hasn't?
Right.
A lot of it is I have overcome that. Like if I were to let myself live that and identify with that, I'd be an anxious hot mess. I wouldn't be on this call with you right now because I would be afraid to show my face and use my voice.
Right.
And the reality is like, okay, but when I realized, when I really started to finally talk to that inner child and do that work, I don't have to identify with anxiety. If I don't want to, I get to choose that.
Yes.
I get to choose what I identify with or as. I want to be anxious and I'm going to be calm and healthy, then I'm going to be calm and healthy. Like I get to choose that and I get to put that energy out there.
You are so speaking my language right now. Like I am over here just singing your praises. Hallelujah. Because ultimately I chose to name this podcast, Think Yourself Healthy, because ultimately when it comes to our health and well-being, it is a choice. We get to choose how we want to feel. And I specialize with a lot of, individuals who have these really traumatic diagnoses of autoimmune disorders. And the second they get that diagnosis, they identify with the diagnosis and then they set an outcome of what their opportunities, what the potential of their life is going to look like, literally based off of that diagnosis. And for myself, when I turned 18 and got this, I got diagnosed with this kidney disease and couldn't get health insurance and was told I was going to need dialysis or transplant within 5 years, I said, oh no, that is not my diagnosis. No way. No, thank you. Appreciate the, that thought, but no. Right. And I chose to take control. But then what I ultimately ended up discovering is that my problems were so much bigger than this kidney diagnosis, and they all existed right here in my brain. And I really needed to do the work on healing the traumas from my childhood that caused me to choose things in my life that had gotten me where I was, that I wasn't content and fulfilled with.
Absolutely. And that's 100%, accurate. And like we call the diagnosis for trauma is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But in reality, it is what we term in somatic work, PTSR, so post-traumatic stress response, because trauma is an event can be traumatic, but your response to it is what is the problem. It's not the trauma, it's how you responded to it. That's why as simple as a look that you got or like a be quiet, I'm on the phone, that can be traumatized because of how you chose to respond to it. And a lot of this work is great. So that inner child chose to respond that way. How does your adult self decide to respond today? How can you make a new decision? How can you make a new response to that? And so you said that beautifully, like your body continues to give you cues that something's wrong until it gets drastic and gives you a major cue. And that's what a lot of times people end up on my couch with. But it's like, okay, she's not getting the early warning sign, so I'm going to give her this autoimmune system.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I love it. I'm so glad that you're speaking to this because I try to tell people all the time. I'm like, if we don't address the root cause, then it's going to manifest in something so problematic that you can no longer ignore it.
100% accurate. It's 100% what happens. And your body, because again, your body's just trying to figure it out. Like it's trying to work with whatever you're giving it. But if you're not giving it what it needs, it's creating all this chaos around you.
So you've worked in this field for quite some time. And so you are now in this new journey of shifting yourself from this insurance-based practice to this new journey. Can you talk about this and why you're choosing to go this route? I have so much respect for you and you're so brave. Oh, you're so brave and I'm so proud of you.
I'm over here shaking in my boots as I do it, but I'm doing it anyways, because again, I'm feeling the fear and moving forward anyways, right? So some of the issues I have, or some of the reasons of switching this over, is insurance is a lot of, it gives it, how do I want to say this? There's a lot of restrictions on how and what I can practice under an insurance policy.
Right.
So I wouldn't be able to do like a Reiki session if I felt somebody needed a Reiki session. I would have to word things in such a way if I was doing yoga. I would have to be so, creative at times, or just not offer the services that I felt were most beneficial for my clients. Insurance wasn't going to cover them. And so the other thing that I don't like about insurance is the diagnosis piece. Because again, I always tout to my clients, I was like, don't live up to your diagnosis. I have to give you a diagnosis so insurance will pay me. But that diagnosis doesn't mean anything.
So it's like a catch-22, right?
It's a starting point for where it doesn't have to be where you end up. You don't have to end up on dialysis in 5 years and having so many kids. It's a starting point, but it's how insurance is going to pay me. I have to do it. And so switching off of insurance policies, if somebody's not planning on like seeking reimbursement for out-of-network benefits, I don't have to diagnose them. I don't have to give them a code. And it's beautiful because then I don't feel like I'm labeling somebody and they're not taking the label and owning it.
Right.
No matter how many times I can have that conversation with clients, they're still going to be like, well, I'm depressed. Because you said you are.
Right.
Because we're not making a different decision.
Yes.
But you can make a different decision. You can make a different choice, and you can choose to pull yourself out of this with the help and support of professionals, your family, your friends, activities. But I can't make you not depressed. You still have to be the one doing the work. So that's your choice. You can either do the work or you cannot.
Yes.
And then we have a conversation.
Yes.
So switching to cash pay or self-investment has been really just beautiful because I can bring people into my Reiki room and we can do like 25, 30 minutes of Reiki and then talk about what they're experiencing and what they felt in their body and what images came up for them or what messages came up for me. And it's so beautiful to be able to do that. Or let's do some yoga and feel into your body and let's be slow about it. So much of what we do is we do the power yoga or we press ourselves, and I'm bringing in these yoga poses where they're doing yin and they're sitting in it for like 3 minutes and they're like, am I done yet? And I'm like, no, because you just asked. So now we got like 3 more minutes. Like, let's feel.
Yeah. I really feel like you're in that, that frontier type of place that we're going to really see what you're doing shift to become the new norm when it comes to meeting our mental health wellness needs. For me, it's so exciting to see someone like you being able to be so brave and to say, you know what? I don't believe that the way I am mandated to have to practice right now is serving people to meet their needs and reach them where they're at and provide them with the skills and services that they need in order to evolve and grow into that place that they want to go. And so I myself left the clinical world because I did not feel I was servicing my clients or my patients. I hate that word patients at that time, the best of my abilities. And so I had to take the risk and say, I'm leaving the clinical world. I'm letting go of the safety and security of that to branch out into private practice where I am now able to offer the services that I feel are going to align with the client's best, what their needs are. And for me personally, it was such a rewarding experience because the second I stepped away from that clinical world and stepped into the private practice world, I felt aligned. I felt like I was truly serving with a purpose and truly offering healing in a way that people can connect with. And when I have stepped back into that clinical space out of fear, it has always punched me in the face and said,
you're not
stupid. Like, what are you doing here? We already told you. And then I am so miserable. And then that lasts for like moments. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a joke. I don't know why I was entertaining that. Goodbye. And then I'm back in alignment over here. So for me, it's really exciting. I'm so, so proud of what you're doing. I think it's amazing. So talk to me a little bit about going from the counseling space to the coaching place.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the other transition I'm definitely making, is moving into some more coaching. I really want to have a wider reach because like you said, this is so needed in so many different areas. And there are so many different people that need support that maybe don't have access to it in their area, or it's so important that we have a guide or a coach or a therapist that we align with. And so if people can't feel that connection with the person who's providing whatever service is providing, that can make or break the experience. That can mean that somebody walks out the door and doesn't go back to counseling or coaching. And so being able to really align with people's energy and having them really hear my voice and having it really resonate is so important. And so being able to offer that in a bigger spectrum, just amazing for me to be able to do, and to really connect with clients that are ideal clients for me. So I've developed a 3 and a 6 month coaching program or packages that really align with body, mind, and soul. And so I really do base my packages off of the chakra system. And so we start from I know, right? It's so exciting. I was like amazed when it came out of me. I'm like, I had no idea where it was, but like it was super exciting. So we spend, in a 3-month program, we spend the first month in the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, really getting firm foundation. We really focus on that sense of self, that connection to earth and to themselves, and really rooting into foundational work through, obviously, Reiki, yoga. I do somatic work. We do narrative talk therapy or coaching wise. The second month, we focus on the upper 3 chakras. And so we focus on the headspace, the emotional self-talk, the limiting beliefs, all of that. And then the third month of that, we focus on the heart and the connection between the two, and really, really spending a lot of time in this heart space. That's where a lot of inner child work happens. It's where a lot of self-love, compassion, really bringing it together. And now that we've identified maybe the beliefs that are in the body and the beliefs that are in the mind, like, and holding space there and be like, okay, how can we merge this together and really just love ourselves and really allow ourselves to move forward in our best capacity.
You are making my heart smile so big. Like literally, yeah. I love it. I feel in such alignment with you. When I approach nutrition from how am I feeding my chakras? What colors can I put into my body to support the systems that are being impacted because of the root, because of the sacral, because of the solar, and etc. So when you're talking about this, I'm just over here lit up like with just pure joy. I'm vibrating so, like my aura is probably violet right now. Absolutely. And I am so in love with this work that you're doing. I definitely, outside of this podcast, I would love to talk with you about teaming up on some things that I would like to do, because I think this work is so valuable. It's so, so necessary. There is such a need for this. If people truly want to evolve into their highest potential and live their best life, they can't escape what you're offering.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so meaningful. And I would love to collaborate, because I think that, yeah, you and I are definitely in alignment, and which is why you asked me and I was like, yes, like, let's do this. Yeah. Absolutely. It is. It's just done the more work that I've done on myself, and having gone through yoga teacher training and then yin teacher training and yoga nidra and all of that, and like really realize the chakras. And I was like, wow, like this is how I'm healing myself, is through really starting from the base up. And why not do the same thing with my clients?
I don't know about you, but I can speak for myself that for me, being able to understand the energy work and how the chakras play a role, it was the place I resisted the most. Through my clinical training and my background, this was the thing that was the hardest for me to really accept and to lean into. And when I finally chose to surrender, that's where the true abundance, the true gratitude, the true fulfillment came from.
Absolutely.
And so with this podcast and having these kind of conversations, my goal is that ultimately we shift the way we choose to approach our health and wellness, and that we basically reverse engineer, instead of starting here at this place with the traditional nutrition and exercise in order to achieve the things that we desire. We really have to go back and start at the beginning, which is that wounded child inside us that's causing us to choose all of the sabotaging behaviors and thoughts and da 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 da.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because that's all that child is wounded and hurting. And what do children do to try to get attention? They throw a tantrum.
Yes.
That's basically what is happening. Our children inside of us are throwing a tantrum.
Yes.
And creating all of these other things. And as soon as we can really connect with that energy and really recognize what it is. And once, I don't know how you were, but once you learned about this energy work, could you not be like, oh yeah, I'm 5 right now. Here I am. Here's my 5-year-old throwing a tantrum.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I recently, after getting back from Event Love, I had an experience. I was trying to process all of that we went through in those 5 days. And I had I had a lot of awareness, and ultimately it resulted in a lot of resistance of me wanting to open up, be vulnerable and honest with myself of where I was truly holding myself back and holding back my ability to receive love and move forward with this healthy relationship that I was in. I was being a little 5-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. And I was crying hysterically, trying to get the words out of my mouth. And I was literally it just wouldn't come out. And then finally, when I chose to give myself permission to just be honest, allow myself to let the guard down, it was this weight lifted off my shoulder. All of a sudden I could breathe. I was free. That little child inside me was thank you. Thank you.
You held me. You gave me what I needed.
Yeah. And I'll, just full transparency, I have over decades and decades worked with a lot of therapists, a lot of psychotherapists. I have worked with integrative, intuitive counselors. I've worked with energy healers. I've done the Reiki. I have done the inner child work. I have utilized all of the disciplines out there to be able to get where I'm at. And I'm so grateful that there are so many different resources and tools that are available for us to be able to assist ourselves through this process. But for me, I couldn't do it alone. It was too hard to do alone. I needed the guidance. I needed the support. But ultimately, what I needed the most was the validation that the work I was doing was actually working.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. This is something that yes, I've done all the things too. I've had all the therapists and the hypnotherapy and
yes.
I had all of it as well. And it's also valuable because each one of those people gave me something and supported me, validated me in a way that another person couldn't have in that moment in time. And so really knowing that we're called to these people and they're brought into our lives for a reason. But for me, it was completely impossible to do alone because I didn't have that insight. Even as a therapist, helping other people is one thing, but I can't do that for myself all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Perspective. I need that outside perspective of somebody being hey, so you look like you're being 5 right now. And you're oh yeah, I am.
Yeah. I think it's funny, or, I think it's interesting that for me personally, all of the things that have allowed me to heal and grow and evolve, insurance does not cover. So I've had to invest in myself because I truly wanted change. Absolutely. And if I kept sticking with the only things that were available to me through through insurance resources, it wasn't yielding the results that I needed. Absolutely. And so I had to trust myself enough to know that the investment I was making was going to help me achieve a result that, had a bigger return on it, my investment, right? But I truly believe every little thing, like the hypnotherapy, the energy healing, the Reiki, all of the pieces, they have all been a part of putting that puzzle back together to allow me to become a healthier version of what I previously was. And I'm so grateful for all of the practitioners out there like yourself and myself who are doing the work and encouraging others to do it so that we can reach that highest potential.
Absolutely. And that's so beautifully said. And I 100% agree with all of it, because it's all just, every time I've gone into a different training or gone into a different program for myself and invested in, whether it was hypnotherapy or Reiki or, yoga Nidra or any of that, like I have grown so much in that process, and it has been so worth it. If not, I would have paid more. Like I probably would have paid more for some of the things I did.
Yes.
And it was just so impactful. And it was about that's another reason to go to self-investment for me as my practices. I want the people that are willing to put that money in themselves.
Yes.
Tells me their willingness to do that tells me that they're ready.
Yes.
That we're not just kind of going to hang out for an hour a week and just chat in my room. They're ready to make big change.
Yeah.
And that is so, when we put that money and when we invest in ourselves, we show up in a different way energetically for ourselves. And it is so beautiful. We can make so much more movement in that space than when we were paying a $10 copay.
100%. You said that so beautifully. It's so true. I hope that you have, I hope that with this interview that we've done, that you truly know that you are making the best decision, not only for yourself, but for your clientele. You are going to really serve in such a greater way and have a more impactful opportunity to really reach people where they need to be. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. No, I'm proud of you too, because I think it's great. Like, again, you going off on your own, it's scary. I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
You don't know where checks are going to come from. You don't know how you're going to pay.
Right.
But it is beautiful to, again, trust that you're going to take care of yourself, and trust that the clients that are meant to meet with you are going to show up.
Yes.
And they always
Absolutely. Where can the listeners find you? Because I guarantee you that there are so many people right now who are like, okay, I don't know what Kool-Aid they're drinking, but clearly it's working and I need some of that.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. It's Carah.Elizabeth, and my name is spelled Carah. Don't forget the H at the end. .Elizabeth. I'm on Instagram, and I have links in my bio to set up a complimentary half-hour discovery call to chat with me and see if it's a good fit for the services and just to learn more about the programming there.
Fabulous. Well, I will make sure that I link all of your information in the show notes so that they can easily find you. I am so grateful and so honored for you to be here today and to have this conversation. We have to have more and more of these conversations. They are so necessary if we really truly want to be able to change, grow into the best version of ourselves, for others. You have to do the work. You can't escape it. And honestly, for the person who's listening, who's on the fence and they're like, I don't know, do the work. It's going to literally be the most fulfilling, rewarding thing you have ever experienced in your life. I wake up every day just grateful that I have gifted myself the opportunity to be where I am today. Yes. It's so amazing. So I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I really, truly look forward to collaborating and connecting with you more. You have a gift, and your gifts are very needed.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have been here with you today. It's been so amazing. So I so appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. I'm so grateful that you stopped by. If you could just take a minute to share this episode with someone you think who would love it, it would be amazing. Take a screenshot that you've listened to the episode and tag at Think Yourself Healthy and myself at Nutrition Vixen so that I can share it. Leave a review on iTunes to let us know how much you loved being here and what you want to hear next. Until next time, don't forget to think yourself healthy. Thanks again, guys. Bye.